I found a little ad that said, wanted hotline coordinator for APLA, and I didn't know what that was. And my job title when I was in Ohio was hotline coordinator, and it's kind of like, ooh, look, they want me. So I went and I had an interview, and I talked to the director of education, Judy Spiegel, and Colleen Johnson, the first social worker. And we had an interview for about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and they basically told me I was nuts about 3 times during the interview. So I went home thinking, well, that's either great or I lost that one. I don't know. Then I got a phone call. I had to go see the executive director, Bill Meisenheimer. I sat and had a conversation with him, and at one point he said, I'm not allowed to ask you this, but how would you feel about working around a bunch of gay people? And my answer, if I recall, was pretty simple. Since I don't plan on having sex at work, I don't see how it matters. That's how it started. They hired me. For the first 6 months, I thought my name was Mary. Hotlines were a really good source of disseminating information. And it became like the core of the operation of APLA, that when you wanted something, you would call the hotline. You could find out about HIV. Well, back then we didn't know HIV, but you could find out about HIV, what was known medically, where to get services, when the test came around, where to get tested, and how to hook up with the services of APLA. If you're trying to deal with something happening in your community and you're feeling like you can do something about it, it's easier to deal with. So I tried to set everything up so that the people answering the hotline and dealing with these situations felt like it was their hotline. They were doing it. Except on the one night of the week when Dynasty was on, I was the only one there taking calls. People were obsessed with this thing. There were people that would call us 6, 8 times a day. I'm not really sure how that was helping them, but there was someone they could talk to, they could calm their fears. Yeah, a lot of their fears are irrational, but when you're scared, that doesn't matter. For me, one of the hardest was talking to someone who, well, yeah, okay, you've just had a diagnosis, that's one thing, but your lover or your brother or someone has just died, and then what do you do? And over the course of those few years, I learned several tricks, one of which was how to not cry when you're talking to people. So one of the tricks is you look at the ceiling. So if you catch me looking up, you know what's going on. We took people through an emotional journey on the training. You looked at all the different facets of the disease. You also learned how to deal with people's emotions. And to do that, you had to explore your own. I remember one gentleman quit the training about halfway through and said, this has forced me to take a look at my life and come face to face with my own mortality. And I can't do this anymore. I remember back in the early days when we were on Cole Avenue, there was only one camera crew in town that would actually come to the project and do an interview. And they wouldn't come into the building. All the interviews were done on a folding chair in the driveway. I remember there were a couple of interviewers that came out frequently, but it was always the same camera crew. They're the only ones. And they would put that little, they called it a lavalier mic on you. And then when they were done, I would take it off and go to hand it to them. Oh, no, you keep it. I had a drawer full. Never had more calls than the week that Magic Johnson came out. Well, he was mainstream. He was sports. He was, all the macho guys out there. This is one of our guys. This is a sports guy, and he's not gay. That means this can happen to me too. So then they all called the hotline to find out. At one point early in the epidemic, the CDC used our hotline as an example of how hotlines should be run. So I had conversations with our director, and we decided that, well, this is kind of a war, and our guns shouldn't work better than theirs. So if they want this hotline package, we'll just give it to them. There was this study done at UCLA, the Gay Men's Cohort Study. Well over 1,000 gay men signed up so they could have their blood drawn at regular intervals, so they could be part of a study, so we could understand something about this. Who's willing to do that today? I don't know. I recall Dr. Fauci, who I got to meet during the first plague, saying recently, I don't know how I can explain to you that you need to care for each other.